decided you want to be a passive investor. You don't want to do all the things, you want to collect them checks. Now, I will say you will have to do a little bit of work. You will have to find property management if you decide to. You will have to, get things fixed when it comes down to it. I mean, if you want to fix it yourself or, hire someone else, it's totally up to you. But these are things you need to determine for yourself and your lifestyle, what's going to work for you. So you need to determine your monthly expenses. So what is your mortgage going to be? What is your property management fees? What are your taxes and insurance? You need to know those things as well. And then you also want to always put a little bit of money on the side just in case something happens, because you never know. Like, I'm in Texas and it was winter yesterday, but it was summer 2 days ago. So how is that going to affect your foundation and your pipes? Does it freeze where you are in the winter time? So is it a possibility that your pipes may freeze or a tree may fall through your roof? I had a tree fall through my roof at my property in September. So it's just certain things that you need to have money set aside for, because you never know what's gonna happen, So we call those capital expenditures. So those are just the things you need to set aside, money you need to set aside just in case some things come up. So you always want to have a little separate account or something for each house or for all of your properties set aside, so that you are not, trying to scramble to get money together or whatever. So you need to determine how much that is going to be. Normally when I run numbers, I do my property management at 10%. And this is 10% of your rent. These are percentages of your rent. Because usually property management charges per how much your rent is. They charge a percentage of how much that is. So on average, about 10%. So 10% for your property management, 5% for your capital expenditures, 5% for your vacancy. So those are your expenses. 10% for property management, 5% for vacancy, 5% for capital expenditures. Maintenance. Why could I not think of maintenance? So maintenance. So you need to include maintenance in your expenses. So 25% total of your maintenance. So you have 10% for your property management, you have 5% for your capital expenditures, you have 5% for your vacancy, and then you have 5% for maintenance. So that 10% property management, that's kind of, self-explanatory. You have a property manager who takes care of getting people in, they take care of your marketing, they take care of your leases, things like that. So that's your property management fees. So the 5% for capital expenditures, that's going to be if something needs to take place. You need to replace the HVAC system or the roof or something. You never know when something may come up. So you want to have that money set aside so that it's there. You're not like, okay, where do I get this money from? You're not scrambling. You're always putting money aside every month just in case something happens. Like your own little insurance policy for yourself. You're gonna have insurance too though. And then you're going to have the vacancy. 5% of your rent is going to go to your vacancy account. And that's gonna be like, what if it takes a month or two to get somebody in there? You want to make sure you're still covering those bills and everything, so you put some money up for vacancy. And then lastly, the maintenance. The one I could not think of, and I don't know why. Maintenance is so important. So if something is happening with the property, you need to get the grass cut, you need to get it sprayed for bugs, just routine maintenance. You need your HVAC system maintenance. You can use your maintenance for that. Regular maintenance things, because you want to make sure you're keeping a very detailed maintenance schedule on your properties so that they will last longer, things will work better. So you want to make sure you have that money set aside for your maintenance. So again, that's 10% property management, 5% vacancy, 5% maintenance, and 5% capital expenditures. I know I said them in a different order, but same thing. So a total of 25% of your monthly rent will be going to these separate accounts for your expenses. So that's that on that, and then I will get into the next little thing so we can get to the numbers on these buy and hold properties. Okay, y'all, so the next thing you need to know so we can figure out if this property is going to work for us as a buy and hold property is the taxes and insurance on this particular property. The taxes, you can actually look up the taxes on the tax assessor's site, or if you are working with a realtor, which you should be, you can have your realtor look it up real quick in the MLS. They can search the taxes on properties so you'll know how much the taxes are. They usually show up for the year. So find out what the taxes are. And then to find out the insurance, you can of course call and get a quote from a local insurance company, or you can also, as just a roundabout guesstimate, do 1%. So 1% of whatever the price is of the home. That's a good way to estimate. It's not always accurate, but you can estimate how much the insurance is going to be. So on our $200,000 duplex, it would be $2,000. So 1% of the $200,000. So $2,000 for the year would be your insurance. So that is how you get your taxes and insurance for the property. Like I said, best way to get the insurance is to get an actual quote from an insurance company. But if you're just trying to run the numbers real quick, you can estimate 1% of the home's value, or how much the house is on the market for it. So that is how you get the taxes and insurance. And next we will dive into how we put all of that together to come up with our cash flow to see how much we're going to be making on this property. Y'all stay tuned. Okay, so let's get into a little bit of the numbers. So first, what we want to figure out is our net operating income. Okay, and our net operating income is simply our income before the debt. So before we include like our mortgage payment, our net operating income is what we have in the bank, or what we have left from after our expenses. Now, because of course you could pay cash if you have cash to pay. So this would be, if you pay cash, your net operating income is also your net income because you don't have any debt to pay. I hope that makes sense. Your net operating income is your income before debt. But if you don't use any debt, so if you don't get any loans on the property, your net operating income is also your net income. Okay? Okay. So what you're gonna do, so you have your rent amount. We're gonna stick with our $200,000 house or property, duplex. So you have the $200,000 or the $2,000 rent. You're getting $1,000 in rent from each side of your duplex every month. So you take your $2,000 in rent, and you can figure this out monthly or yearly. Some people do monthly, some people do yearly. We're just gonna keep it simple and do for the month. Is it gonna take care of everything for the month, our rent? So you have your $2,000 in rent, $1,000 from each side of our duplex. So the $2,000 is the first thing I write out, $2,000. And I'll show you guys exactly how I write it out on my paper, because I'm a pen and paper girl. So you write out your $2,000, and then from that, we need to subtract our expenses. So that is our, remember, we have 25% worth of expenses. We have 10% in our property management, 5% for maintenance, 5% for vacancy, and 5% for capital expenditures. So total of 25% in expenses, which 25% of $2,000 is $500. So our expenses are $500. And then we need to figure out our taxes and insurance as well. So let's just, I'm just making this up as I go, so you have something to write down, but we'll do real life examples too. So say your taxes are $1,000 a year. So divide that by 12 and that gives you $66 per month. So we have our $66 for our taxes. Say our insurance is also $1,000. So we're going to have another $66. So we need to add that insurance and the taxes to the $500 to get our total expenses. And the reason we add the taxes and insurance here is because whether you have a loan or not, you always are gonna have to pay taxes and insurance. So we separate that from the loan amount because no matter what, you're gonna have to pay it. So that's why I run it like this. So you have your $500 and we need to add the 66 and the 66 to it. Okay, so we added our, we have our 500 for expenses and we have the 66 from our insurance and the 66 from our taxes, which is 132. Add those together, so we have 632 total expenses. So $632 total in expenses. So we have our $2,000 in rent. We subtract the 632 from that. Okay, so our $2,000 in rent minus our $632 in our total expenses is $1,368. Y'all use the calculator. I am no mathematician, I used the calculator. So that is our net operating income. So that is our net operating income. So that is our amount we have before the debt. So that's before the loan. So before our mortgage payment, that's what we have left with. So we're hoping that our mortgage payment comes in less than $1,368, because if it's more than that, then we're gonna be in the negative. So next we will figure out our net operating income, but you need a special calculator to do that. So you need to download the Carl's Mortgage Calculator. It is free from your app store or wherever you get your apps for your phone. And that is going to that's gonna determine what our mortgage payment is going to be for the month if we're using debt, if we're getting a loan for this property. And so then we can figure out our net income, okay? So we'll talk about that next. So I had to pull out a clipboard so I can remember. I'm like, I'm not gonna remember all these numbers, but they will be on the screen for you too. So next we're trying to figure out our net income, which is going to be our cash flow if we use debt. If you use debt, your net income is your cash flow. So remember we bought this property we're buying this property for $200,000. So if you go to your Carl's Mortgage Calculator, it should look like this when you put it in, okay? So you're gonna put $200,000 at the top because that's what we're buying the property for. That should give you a $40,000 down payment because we're putting 20% down. If you put 20% down on your down payment on the Carl's Mortgage Calculator, it'll automatically figure out that $40,000 for you. And then, so our principal is $160,000. So that's what the bank is financing, is $160,000. And 7% interest is what I put in there, but you're gonna put exactly the terms that your bank gives you because you're gonna already be pre-approved and already talking to the bank. Okay, so these numbers though in the Carl's Mortgage Calculator are pretty common, 7% interest, 20 years. Sometimes you can get 30 years as well, depending on the bank. So, like I said, whatever your actual terms are you're getting from the bank, that's what you're gonna put in the Carl's Mortgage Calculator. But just for practice sake, or if you're just looking online, you can use these as like general terms. So, we are at our net operating income, and remember our net operating income was $1,368. So Carl's Mortgage Calculator shows us that with these terms, the 7% interest at 20 years, 20% down on $200,000 house, it shows us that our mortgage payment will be $1,240. So now we take our net operating income, our $1,368 minus our mortgage, which is our $1,240. So that gives us $128 of net income. So again, that $1,368 was our net operating income. That was our rent minus our total expenses, which was $632. So that's where we got the $1,368 from for our net operating income, also known as NOI. And then we put all the numbers in our Carl's mortgage calculator, and then we got a payment back to the bank because we're taking out a loan of $1,240. So when you take your $1,368 net operating income minus your $1,240 loan payment or mortgage payment, you get $128 of net income. So that's what you're left over with. That's your cash flow is $128. Now you might be like, $128 a month? No, it's not a lot, but it is something. So if that is not enough for you, because the first thing you need to determine is like how much you want to make per property. How much do you need to make to get out that job? How much do you need to make to, take care of your lifestyle? So if $128 is not what you're looking to make, then you can kind of play around with the numbers a little bit. What if I offered this for the house? Then how much would the payments be? And don't be scared to make a disrespectful offer. Like, offer what works for you, because you're working on building your own legacy. So of course your payments will be cheaper if you did $190,000, $180,000. So play around with the numbers to see how you can get that cash flow to be exactly what you want and need it to be. So you can do that by if you could increase the rents, you can do that. And you can increase the rent by, of course, forcing the appreciation, and you force appreciate the house or force the price of the house or the house to be worth more. That's what forced appreciation means, by renovation. So if it's just like a basic house, is it in a neighborhood that would do well with some more upgrades? So you can look into things like that. And you can also look into, like I said, decreasing your offer. So just because they have it listed at 200 does not mean we're offering 200, or does not mean that that's what you have to offer, or that's what the person will take. You never know what somebody is going through. They might be going through a divorce or loss of a friend, family, loved one, and they are wanting to move to a different area. You just never know what people are going through. So don't be scared to offer what's lower than the price that they have listed, because people might just be sick of their house or sick of being the landlord they sell, but you never know. So offer what works for you so that you can get the income that you desire. So that is how you look at a buy and hold property. And no matter how many units it is, now if it's a large number of units, you do need to look at some other things, rent roll. Even if it's any multifamily unit, you need to look at the rent rolls. If they have renters in there, when are they going to be moving out? Did they just re-sign their lease? Do they pay any part of the maintenance? Things like that you need to add into your numbers, and we can talk more about that. But this is just a basic overview of how you would look at a buy and hold to see if it will be profitable for you. So I hope this helps, and I will have some live examples that you can check out as well to see exactly how I write out the numbers and how I calculate everything and how it can work for you just day to day, going through Zillow or realestate.com or whatever to find those properties. So y'all check out the next videos. Hope you learned something. Drop your comments below and let me know what else y'all want to know.